So good evening, everybody. I like to kind of start out and get a pulse of the room. Who had an awesome May? Yeah, all right. All right, who would like to start May over and do it again? All right. All right, so you guys are here tonight because serious people turn conversations into deals. We build wealth through action, not just networking. Tonight, you will meet real capital sources and proven investors while we focus on getting smarter and more profitable. Welcome. So, recently, I was having a conversation with somebody in the group, and they shared a challenge that felt overwhelming to them, and I got to thinking, your problem is not the problem. Your reaction to the problem is the problem. You need to ask yourself, what is the simplest way forward if I stop making this so complicated? So I want to tell you guys about an opportunity that changed how I think about investing, okay? And so if you guys are new to this group, you know that I like to start things off with a story. I think it lets you guys learn something about me and learn something about why I do what I do and why I try to give as much value as possible to this group every single month and during the month. If you guys don't know, we do a mid-month, live, Facebook Live event, and it also goes on YouTube to our channel so that you guys can see it there as well. But, what I'm about is providing as much value as possible to you guys because there was a time when I started and people like Mike helped me out and got me going in the right direction. So I hope this is for you tonight, okay? So back when I was getting my feet wet, so we've been investing since 2014. We started doing it correctly in 2015 and 2016, and then I started over again in 2017. And the problem with starting over is I started over twice, and the second time I started over was, what direction am I really going to go? And so I thought to myself, I can't bid on government auctions anymore because the deal flow just isn't working. And so we ended up having to do direct-to-seller marketing. And at the time, one of the best ways and lowest cost ways to do that is search engine optimization. So SEO as the acronym that most people would know it as, okay? And so in doing that, I started down this rabbit hole. I have Carrot websites. Anybody who has top ranking websites, they're Carrot websites. Hands down, they're the best for real estate investors. And so that's just a clue, all right? All right, so anyway, we ended up, we had more time than we had money, Adila and I, so what we did is we decided that we were just gonna go ahead and spend the month of December. I bought a $200 course, and we lived in Caroline County, and this was in 2018, 2017. We didn't have the best internet, we had, living in a rural area, so we would end up going to the Henrico County libraries. And just to keep things fresh, we would go to this one and then this one and then this one, so we didn't go to the same one all the time. But I remember just about every day during the week, we would be sitting in the library if she didn't have a staging, and I would just be going through the $200 course with Carrot of, step 1, right? Name your website. Step 2, make it pretty. Step 3, personalize it. Get the canned pictures out and get the real pictures in and start, tagging them correctly and SEO in the pictures and SEO in YouTube and this whole rabbit hole. But it turns out that it works, right? If you just kind of follow the system that they lay out for you. And so around March, I started noticing that I was creeping up on page 1. And another thing that I noticed is I was good at it, albeit I didn't really care for it. I'm not a real, I say that, but I'm on the computer all day. If I could choose not to be on the computer, I would choose that, right? But I wasn't bad at it. And so, we ended up getting, pretty high rankings to where only the national brands were, ahead of us, with millions of dollars to throw at that in the national environment. And so in saying that, we started producing organic leads. And one day, it was like a Sunday morning, right? And I got this lead submission form from this guy named Lamont. And I said, huh. And I just hit the link for the address, and it was the Tarrington subdivision off of Robius Road in Midlothian area, so, which is a very nice neighborhood. I was like, this has got to be spam, right? And so I was like, but Forrest, you go through the motions, you do what you need to do, and you call them up. And so I called this gentleman up, and sure enough, that was the right address. I wasn't in the wrong neighborhood, and it was a real lead, and he had a real problem. And you know, whether you guys really realize it or not, we're all here for a profit, but at the core essence of our business, we're problem solvers, right? We're really solving somebody's problem, whether you're lending like, you know, Charlie and Suzanne, you know, whether you are flipping a house and making it better for a new family, or whether you're doing like what I do more often than not, is just solving somebody's problem and making some money from my experience and my knowledge. So I went to this house, and to say it was a train wreck was an understatement, right?
Yeah.
It was an understatement. And so anyway, I got into an agreement for like, I don't remember the numbers per se, but it was around $400,000, and we ended up selling it for $7,000. All right, but we got into it pretty light. And so Mike's so fond of this deal that it's on all of his programming. All right, so you guys have seen this house before, because Mike just loves me that much that he puts this house on there. So I was able to make a deal, but I didn't know anybody who had $400,000 in their pocket. But I did have a relationship with Mike, because before that we had used Mike as a lending partner and his company as a lending partner on a flip in Hopewell when my dad and I were still in business. So I called Mike. I said, hey, I got this wonderful opportunity. Well, I want you to lend on it. And so he goes, all right, I'll go take a look.
So you said something else that you shouldn't leave out. You said two things to me. Forrest said, I got this super hot deal, and it was. And he said, I have two problems. I don't have any money down, and I can't make any payments.
and he did exactly what you just did. All right? He laughed at me. He laughed at me on the phone. He goes, okay, I can work with that. And so he went and looked at the property, and I'll never forget, you know, you would think that, you know, a mortgage company person would, you know, be driving something, you know, other, but I think you were driving a Honda Accord, and that, you know, that resonated with me, that like, you know, this guy's just a dude, right, that, you know, just has a business. And so, so Mike goes, all right, here's what I'm going to do. I'm not going to do what you want me to do, but I'm going to give you an idea. He said, the guy owns this house in cash, so he doesn't need all the money right now. He said, why don't you let him carry a second for $100,000? I'll carry the first at $300,000. I'll loan you the $300,000, and the second will just get paid at closing when you renovate it and sell it. And I said to myself, I said, I'll never go for this, right? You know, because, you know, I'd never pitched, you know, seller carry back before. And I mean, I'd heard about it, but I never had the confidence to pitch it. But, you know, the way that Mike presented it, and then that was the only deal I had. I mean, you know, this opportunity, I couldn't let it go. And this was the deal that was on the table. And Mike wasn't up for renegotiating. And so I went back to Lamont and I said, I got really bad news. I don't know if you guys do anything with sales or anything, or any sales training, but you know, the best thing to do is just to, you know, just lay on the ground like a puppy dog and show your belly, right? I mean, that's the best way to renegotiate. And so I just laid down on the ground, I showed my belly, and I said, Lamont, you're gonna hate me. He goes, why? I said, I'm gonna need you to hold $100,000 until I flip the house and sell it. My lender can only come up with $300,000, which probably wasn't true. But that was the deal that was presented to me, and sure enough, Lamont goes, okay, I will do that. And so we redrafted the documents, and we got the deal closed. We ended up flipping the house. So this was a 2011 build. We did this in 2019. And so it was a new house. It was just a train wreck. I mean, we've all seen lack of respect for a home before. And this was extreme, to say the least. So we did 4 dumpsters of stuff. Well, I mean, this is like a 3,000 square foot house, right?
Yeah,
I mean,
it was a beautiful house before.
Yeah, it was a beautiful house. It was a beautiful house before. It was a beautiful house after. And so, you know, we did collaboration through the whole thing, because so I had my wife who owns Dealer Design. You know, she's a design and staging company. And we had, I wanted to do some shock and awe paint, right? So we had Sherwin-Williams color consultant come out, and she gave us some ideas, and we ended up going with some pretty bold accent colors, and it was just absolutely, it was the icing on the cake for sure. That house was hot. I went, you know, you do everything you need to do a deal, right? And so like I went to this website called lumens.com, and at the time they were like giving away like Synchrony credit cards like candy. And so I was like, okay, so I just bought all these high-end LED light fixtures, because you have to renovate to the neighborhood, right? I would never do that on Carlisle, but you know, Carlisle's a Home Depot $12 nipple light, right? But this one was LED fixtures that had wires that took me hours to get level, and you know, I mean, me being an electrician, you damn well know I'm gonna get it right? So we just poured a lot of time into it. I got a very good hardwood floor guy out of Fredericksburg area, Spotsylvania area, to come down and do it because he just had such a great reputation. My painter, God bless him, I mean, he totally underbid that job, and I didn't tell him. And it was a mess, right? So as an example, so there was a lot of water damage in the ceiling of the garage. And so I was doing the walkthrough on the house, and I said, why is all that water damage there? Is there a leak? He goes, no, we've had a plumber in here, and they say there's no leak, and you know, everything's fine. And I said, well, what's all the water damage for? He goes, well, my daughter doesn't like to use a shower curtain. I said, well, that's an easy fix. He goes, well, you try to tell a teenager what to do. And I was like, okay, let's keep going, right? I mean, nothing you can't fix, right? So, except for this ceiling of this garage was like 15 feet in the air. This thing was huge. But anyway, you just pay somebody, right? And you just write a check. And so anyway, we get to where we're ready to stage this thing, and dealer's like, I don't have the furniture for this house, because we were staging more, you know, median type home. So I said, all right, well, let's go get another credit card. And so we went and got another credit card, and we went and she got a trade account at West Elm, and she bought her first, you know, real leather couch, which everybody walked by here this evening. That couch came from that house, the leather one in her office. You guys walked through dealer's office to get here. So we just leveled up, right? But it was all because somebody that I trusted gave me an idea, and it worked, right? And so, you know, that's what we're here about tonight. And that's why I asked Mike to come and talk, because I respect him highly of being somebody that is a deal maker and a problem solver and an enabler. And I know there's a lot of enablers in here, and there's a lot of problem solvers, but Mike's been doing this since 2000? But
yeah.
Before that, you were doing...
I was a rehabber like you.
Yeah, and then you fixed that problem.
Yeah. That's right. That was a problem.
So, Mike, I'm going to let you introduce yourself.
Yeah.
All right?
So, yeah, before I went into lending,
That's a good picture, right?
That's good.
That is a good picture.
I went into, you know, I did fix and flips, and I went to a lot of foreclosure auctions, and that was back in the 90s, early 2000s. You know, everybody and their mother wasn't showing up at these auctions like they did later on. And so, you could get stuff at a reasonable price and make a profit and so I collected, about 20 houses in my portfolio, and I still have them, and I wish, of course, in hindsight, I'd have done 100, kept 100, but that's all hindsight. So then I got tired of chasing contractors, and so I started lending money, and I knew people, I'd show up at auctions, they say, Mike, lend me money to buy this foreclosure, and I'd say, it'd take me, 10 minutes to say, yeah, that's a good deal, and then I'd just tell them how much I'd lend, and that's how I operate now, basically. So it might take me 20 minutes now, So one of the reasons I was able to work with Forrest on this deal is, we had done business together before, so I knew he could bring a project in on time, on budget. And, he wasn't a total newbie. And not that somebody new couldn't do that, but when you work with somebody, you know what they can do, and enabled me to be much more flexible with no money in the deal and no payments, And to compensate for that, even though I knew Forrest, I wanted to have a very low loan to value. So that's why I wanted that seller to take back a second mortgage. And back in 2019, the market was totally different than it's been since 2000, wouldn't you say?
Yeah.
I mean, it just,
Well, so we sold that house for $689, and it sold in May of 2024 for 1.1.
Right. And, I'm sure in hindsight, if Forrest had a way to keep that house.
But had better loan terms.
That's right. But I'm going to give you an idea, Forrest. I'm going to give you an idea how to capture some of that upside between 689 and what'd you say, 1.2?
1.1.
1.1. So here's an idea that when you got the horrible Richmond mortgage loan terms, but you get the deal done and you make over $100,000.
We did.
And you go to sell the property, you might make more money by selling it for a little bit less, but make more money in the long run. And here's how. You get the buyer to give you an option on the increase in value of that house. So let's just use round numbers. 1.1, let's say you sold it for 700. Well, that's a difference of 400,000. Well, let's say you couldn't come to quite terms on the sale price, and you say to the buyer, well, we're off by 20,000. I'll tell you what I'll do. I'll sell it to your price, but I want 20% of the upside on this house over the next 10 years. And you record an option which secures your agreement on this house. So there's a 400,000, so 20% of 400,000 is 80,000. Yeah. So, what's it worth to you to get 80,000 in 5-10 years? You're not giving up much cash, or maybe no cash.
It's like the Easter Bunny showed up.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
If you stack these things on all these houses you sold, every year you might have 40, 50, 80,000 coming in because these people got to refinance or they're moving, and there's a whole, I'd like to tell you that I'm so smart I thought of this myself, but that's not I didn't. I took a course in options from Bill and Kim Cook, and I'm still reviewing the tapes, and so that's something I recommend, that maybe you have some presentations and I could help you with it on how to use options.
Oh yeah, that's great. Would y'all be interested in that? Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
So, Glenn, perfect for you. You take a little piece of the increase in value. If you believe your area is going to grow in value, then, and people, you'd be surprised what they're willing to give you. Now, if they don't give it to you, they're not willing, you don't have to sell it, but maybe you sell it and you say, okay, I didn't get that increase in value.
And you don't have to exercise the option if the price goes down, the neighborhood goes bad.
That's right.
It's little risk, but
Right.
there's a potential significant gain.
Exactly. And you don't own the house, you don't have any liability, but you're participating in the appreciation.
So the value of the house goes down, you don't have to exercise your
No.
option. However, just having the option recorded in the county clouds the title. And
Yes.
prevents the current owner, who you have the option to deal with, from selling it out from under you.
Right, that's right. That's why you record it.
They have to sell it to you first.
Yeah, well, they got to come, they got to notify you and say, what is this? What's the payoff?
Right.
And you just negotiate. You may get what you thought you were going to get, you may not be able to, who knows? But there are different ways to record it to protect yourself. People, title abstractors who look for the chain of title where you get your title insurance, sometimes they'll miss the memorandum of an option recorded. So you record a second deed of trust that references the memorandum. And that way, they will always see that second mortgage. And the second mortgage doesn't describe the option, it just says this references that option. And that's how you protect yourself for something like that.
Oh, that's pretty interesting. I wish you had told me that earlier.
I wish I'd known it earlier. I'd have been doing that for the last, 5-10 years.
Yeah.
But I didn't learn that. That's
So
the benefit of going to these meetings and going to seminars.
So year 25 of lending, now you're learning a new thing.
You
huh?
got it.
Yeah.
So I go to seminars and I'm learning new things, and I really passing it on to other people and my daughters if they want to listen.
Tell me about your daughters. I know your one daughter is in the business. You have more than one now?
Well, Mary used to underwrite with me, and then she kind of, decided to have kids. So those aren't compatible. Working and having kids almost, I don't know how women do it. But so she had to take some time off, and so we talk about her business, but now she's doing her own real estate thing, and she's renovating a church in Churchill, in Albemarle County, and turning it into a bed and breakfast. She used to work at a bed and breakfast, and it's a passion she has for hospitality, and something I would never do, but she wanted to do it, so I said, go for it. And then my older daughter is Sarah, and she is a go-getter of a real estate. She worked for this hard-charging woman who was a developer, and learned a lot working with that woman, and now her goal is to do development. She's done one development already, but she took off to have a couple of kids. She has a 6-month-old now, so she's kind of, maybe another 6 months, she says she'll get back into the game.
Good.
Yeah.
So the market is changing. Is that a fact?
I would say so.
Okay.
But it's always changing.
So it's changing in a direction that we would prefer it not change, right? So tell me, how are we navigating, skinny deals right now? What do you see people navigating skinny deals successfully?
Can you say what skinny deals are?
Low margin deals, or we got in at 70, we had some issues. So we got in at 70% ARV, we had some issues. Now it's even more thin, right? You're getting up to, 6 months, your term where you start facing some, additional terms. And so, what do you see that's working right now to, get people out of trouble or keep them from getting too far into trouble?
Well, the first thing is you have to not be too anxious. Like, I don't have a deal. I got to do something. I gotta buy something. I don't have a deal. I don't have a business if I don't buy a deal. And it's the same with me. I don't have a loan. We all have to be patient and wait for the deal that has a decent margin to come in. But I think you're asking, how do you make a good deal when they don't seem to be there? So I think you start looking at maybe doing some slightly different things. So an example is a guy came to me with 5 condos that he had under contract. And normally you wouldn't come to a hard money lender for something that big unless it was just incredible margin because our rates are too high. But what he had arranged was his local community bank, he had great credit, was willing to lend him on this 1.1 million purchase. They said they'd lend him 900,000. Now their rates, you know, are a third of mine or something, you know. And they wanted 200,000 down, and he needed 100 to renovate, so he needed 300,000. So he had only 100,000. So I said, I'll give you the 200,000, I'll record a second mortgage, a no payment second, and we'll split the profit. And that's how we sort of solved that. He had this great financing for most of the deal, 900,000, you know, and maybe it was at 5 or 6%. Only a community bank is going to do that. And they were happy because they had their loan to value, and he's a great credit guy. And so that's how they did the deal. And I basically became a down payment partner with him. So maybe you find deals where the seller will help you, and and Richmond Mortgage is now a down payment partner.
Isn't that called gap lending?
You could call it that, yeah.
Okay. Mm-hmm. All right, is everybody familiar with that term? What's the term? Gap lending?
But I like down payment partner because it tells you exactly what you're doing.
Okay.
You know,
okay.
You don't have all the down payment, you need part of it.
Or the renovation money.
Or the renovation money could be, you know.
So when you do that kind of thing, if you don't mind sharing numbers, because you're sharing some of them, I'm guessing you may not mind. What kind of interest do you end up earning on that?
Well, on that 5 condo deal, we split the profit. He got 2/3, and I got 1/3. And I think the gross on that was around 500,000. So, you know, it was
so you almost doubled your money.
Well, I got 1/3 of the 500, so I got 170 or something.
And you loaned 200.
And I loaned 200, so yeah. But he got a great deal. I mean, he made 300, a little over 300.
You made a deal happen the same way that you made a deal happen for me, that the guy didn't have another option.
Yeah.
Or he probably had another option, but you know, you took the opportunity before he had time to go to somebody else.
Well, he did have the clock running.
Did he?
So, you know, he had it under contract with a close date, so he needed to make it happen. So, you know, by having a partner, maybe he gave up, you know, I don't know, 50,000 or something, or 70,000, but he still made 300,000, which is, that's not so bad.
He was going to pay interest one way or another.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
He didn't have any monthly payments, and that was nice.
Oh, those are nice deals.
And he didn't have to, you know, he had plenty of time to do whatever he wanted because we were really kind of like partners on it.
Right. Yes, Chuck.
On your part of the deal, how did the underwriting work?
Well, I looked at the combined loan to value. The first was 900, and I added in my 200, so I was going to be at 1.1 million if I had to take over the project if he got hit by a bus or something. And you know, at the end of the day, it was worth about 1.7. So to me, that was a good enough loan to value, being at 1.1 on something worth 1.7. So, you know, I had an agreement with the first mortgage lender that if something did happen to him, they would let me cure any default and take over that loan. I'd still have to perform. They had a balloon date on it, so, but at least I had some opportunity to recover.
Does everybody understand gap funding or down payment loan? Okay. And you can get quite creative when somebody needs something, right? So that's pretty interesting. What else you got?
Oh, let's see. Well, I've got a builder I work with. He does a lot of houses. He likes to build starter houses, and that's what's selling in the market now. You know, the 600 and up houses don't seem to be selling so quick, particularly if they're not in a perfect neighborhood. And this guy builds houses that sell for $350. They're little starter houses. And he tries to find lot sellers that will sort of partner with him. And the way they partner with him is they get a second mortgage for the price of the lot. So he has to put very little money down. Maybe he gives them a few thousand, and we put our first mortgage on for the construction cost. The lot seller takes a second mortgage for the balance due on the lot. So maybe the lot is worth 30, let's say. And he'll say, well, look, just if you wait to the end, just like on your deal, you can get 35. I'll pay you 35 for this lot that's really only worth 30. And he'll get a few of those in every year, and we do those all day long. We have a first on the construction cost. The lot seller waits for their payout when he finishes building and sells the house. And these little starter homes, they sell really quick. They just
How do you structure the construction loan?
We pay for completed work, so he has to get a building permit, obviously. He's got his own set of subs that he uses over and over, and let's say his footer and foundation fellow will come in and do that for $10,000. He has to have some money in his pocket to pay them that $10,000. So we pay for completed work, and then we reimburse him immediately once he sends us pictures and a lien waiver from the sub that says, I've been paid by the builder. And we just build the house literally for each phase of completed work. And I'll leave that up to the builder to say, this is how I want to be paid. He doesn't get any money for work that hasn't been completed, but we pay for labor and materials.
Okay.
Is
So
that-
you're a 100% construction loan funder, as long as the land is either paid for or there's
Subordinated.
okay,
Right, they got
subordinated.
subordinated means they have a second mortgage, so they want to protect themselves, make sure they get paid when that house gets sold. Mm-hmm. That's how we do it.
Okay. Okay. Is that in town or is that rural?
Both. Yeah, wherever he finds lots. He's doing more, it seems to be more rural right now. Mm-hmm. And it's a great niche if you can find reasonably priced lots. Now that is a hard part. Everybody's shopping
Yeah.
for reasonably priced land.
Right. Okay.
So if you want a horror story,
We love horror stories, right?
So-
everybody wants to hear about somebody failed.
so buying lots, people come to me all the time and say, will you finance this lot, this land? And I'm very reluctant to do it because they don't have a building permit, okay? And they haven't done enough due diligence. So I was financing this builder on this road in Suffolk, I think it was. And a fella that happened to know him was looking at the land that was right next door to this house that I was financing, and he saw that this land was coming up for an auction. So he rode down the lane, and he figured, well, the builder has water and sewer. Obviously, I have water and sewer. And there was even a house on the other side of the land, but it was up on the corner, and it was getting its water and sewer, turned out, from a different road. And this builder had sewer and water up to his property, but you had to bring that line, I don't know, 75 feet to his land. Well, he thought he was just going to tap into the street. Well, he hadn't done enough due diligence. And he just went to the auction, bought it, made a bunch of assumptions, and this actually turned out to be a private road. It kind of looked like a narrow subdivision road, but it was really just a private road. So he had to get permission from all the people on that road to extend that sewer line, which is a real hassle. You know, most people are reasonable, but you always get a few that aren't. And, you know, by the time he had to pay for that connection, it's very expensive. You have to dig down the street, bring that sewer all the way. It could be really deep, or it's all kinds of problems. And you got to repave the road. It's, you know. So he was upside down totally, and you know, he wanted me to finance him, but on that purchase, but I said, that won't work. So be careful when you're buying land. You really have to know, can you get a building permit? You have to almost go down a checklist of problems and issues that the county is going to ask you about. You know, he hadn't done any wetland studies, resource protection. A lot of you probably may not even know about this. And you got to get an engineer that or architect that knows all about these issues and how to figure out what the issues are with that land.
Okay. So where are you lending now?
We lend from basically Charlottesville. I really lend all through Virginia, but primarily our loans are coming from Charlottesville, Richmond area, down to Tidewater, New Kent, up to Louisiana, up to Fredericksburg. So sort of in that triangle. Okay. And but we're looking at, you know, when we can find somebody who's experienced, knows what they're doing, we will go outside of that that territory. I just made a loan up in Fairfax County, just because this fellow and I developed a relationship. We've been dealing together for years, and you know, so he found a great deal, and so he just called me and I funded it, and after asking a couple of questions in a few minutes.
So I noticed, you know, with Dealmaker, we had the private lending event, and then we have, you know, another one coming in Dallas. It seems to be like, you know, there's a lot of lenders out there now. And at the last event, we noticed that, like, you know, they were like, you know, you need like this encyclopedia paperwork, right? You know, how do, you know, the lenders and the borrowers, you know, really know that they're protected with, you know, the minimum amount of paperwork? Because you know, like Fred, for example, Glenn, for example, they'll do credit checks, right? You know, but you're like, no credit check needed. And, you know, at the time that I needed credit, that was a bonus, right? That was something that would have been a deal breaker for me at that time, right? So, you know, how do you mitigate that risk, you know, for people that, you know, are maybe looking for their next loan or something like that? How do you mitigate that risk of the borrower's creditworthiness?
So I used to be in the mortgage business for homeowners. And every year, the paperwork with, you know, it started about this much, and then it went to this much, and that, you know, if you get a homeowner loan now, I mean, you're talking 60, 70 pages, 80 pages. So I got tired of that, and I said, I'm going to go into commercial lending. These are all commercial loans, business to business. And I'm going to eliminate all my paperwork. And I'm just going to be a collateral lender. And if I like the value of the property, if I know that if something happens to that borrower, if that borrower gets hit by a bus and I have to take back the property, I feel like I can probably get my principal back, then I'm going to make that loan. And that's how I'm mitigate my risk. So I don't look at your credit. I don't look at your bank statement. I don't look at your financial statement. I don't look at where you live. I don't look at your credit report. I just don't look at anything, because I figured, you know, as long as I've got the right amount on the collateral, I'm going to do all right. It's not going to be perfect every time, and I will tell you that even though that's the system I use, I do have losses. You know, you wouldn't think I would, but every now and then,
something surprises you.
yes, it does. I overestimated the person's ability. I overestimated the property, it's some mistake I made. And so you can't lend money and not have losses, in my opinion. But the losses aren't enough to stop me from operating the way I am. And I probably have less losses than the companies that lend to consumers.
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
So the one in Fairfax County, you said you asked a few questions. Like, what are those questions? What made that appealing to you from this person?
Well, he said, I found another deal. He works the same subdivision for the last 20 years, same couple of subdivisions. So he knows it like the back of his hand. He said, I had a customer came to me and they just don't want to put the house on the market and have to renovate it, and they just want $620,000, and all I need from you, Mike, is $450, and I'm going to sell this house for $720. So he had a $100,000 profit, and he's a realtor, and he just knows the values. And when somebody says to me, particularly somebody I've dealt with, that they're going to put down, $170,000, this is about how long it took me to say, sure. I said, send me pictures of the property. He said, and he's going to do that. I mean, why do I need to go any further? Would you make that loan?
Would I?
Yeah.
Well, so
Would you make that buy?
Let's by show of hands, right? They've got a lot of skin in the game. They're asking for a low loan to value, and you've done business before successfully. Would you continue to do business on that deal with that person?
Yeah.
Right? Yeah, I would.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. So where are you not putting your money right now?
I'm not lending on more expensive houses unless it's really well located for that area. So for example, this house is going to sell for $720, maybe $750 in Northern Virginia. So that is a pretty good price. And I'm only exposed at $450. To get this house at $450 to sell it, I can always get my money back, unless we have a depression. But if you took that same house and put it in some places in the Richmond area, so I have a builder in the East End, he's trying to sell this house for $700 he built, and it's just sitting on the market. It's too much for that neighborhood, number one, and those houses at that price range aren't selling. Now, if that house had been maybe in Western Henrico near Short Pump, something like that, it probably would be selling. Mm-hmm. But, so I'm very location, neighborhood shy, particularly of higher price houses. That being said, my attitude is I can always make a deal if I just get the right loan to value for that neighborhood. But I'm typically doing lower priced houses right now because I feel like that's mostly what people can afford.
Yes, sir.
It's all about the location. How are you taking the house back if something happens to you? You got a clause in your agreement to take it back, or do you have to foreclose?
I just foreclose because that's what I like. It's very clean. I know that I wipe out any other title issues, even anything somebody missed. And so I know some people they get quick claim deeds or something that they escrow. I don't know if you do that, Fred.
What do you do, Fred?
Well, we don't foreclose. We go to court and get a judgment on anything else they have, and go after their personal house. This is what we do.
Yeah.
So Fred said he gets a judgment on them and goes after their children and their home and their cars.
Right.
For anybody who didn't hear that.
So,
Fred's got a farm that he needs lots of labor.
right.
It's lower cost. You're talking $8,000 to $11,000.
No, I'm talking about 5,000.
Okay, 5,000. So you get a judgment on them to go after their personal house and stuff, you took like $70.
Right, well, you're putting a lot of pressure on them. I don't want to, that's just my nature. I don't want to, I won't take, people will give me, sometimes I say, do you have additional collateral on another piece of real estate? And they'll have a house they live in that has equity. I won't accept it. I just don't want to be kicking people out of their homes. I mean, they may deserve it. They may be crooks. I don't know. Most of them aren't. Most of them are nice people.
Just got in a bad way.
They just, something bad has happened, and I don't want to kick them while they're down. And so I set my business up where I make the loan so that I have collateral that I think will get me my principal back. I won't get my interest probably, but at least I get my principal. And as long as I do that, you know, I don't need to go after extra money. And a lot of times it's good money going after bad. They're going to go declare bankruptcy and cause me a lot of problems. And I just want to keep, you know, that deal didn't work, I'm going to go to one that does. So I just go on to the next one.
When you take one back, what do you do? Do you just sell it as it is? Do you bring in a contracting team to finish it up? And
yeah, I make an appraisal and decide whether I want to fix it up. Most of the times I don't fix it up, clean it out, and then I sell it, usually to another investor.
you got a black book of investors that you're like, hey, I got a hot one, and I'll even lend on it.
Yeah,
Huh?
right, I do that. Also, a lot of times I sell it on the MLS.
Okay.
You know, and they seem to move. Mm-hmm. And they surprise me. And sometimes they surprise me on the positive side as well as the negative side. So.
Yeah, I think recently we've all been kind of surprised by some things are flying and some things are dying.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah. Okay. Go ahead.
How often have you had to take back a home?
Not very often. I probably have every other year. I have something I made a mistake on, and you know, I'll take back a project that, you know, I overestimated the person's ability to do the project, and they screwed it up, and they hired the wrong contractor. They don't realize that you just can't give the contractor all the money and hope he'll show up and do the project. I mean, I've had people do that, and they're not giving my money, they're giving their money out of their pocket and expecting me to reimburse them, but I only reimburse for completed work. And then some people hire contractors who do the worst work in the world, you know, and that'll come back to bite us all.
Let's go down that rabbit hole. So I want to talk, there's a couple things there. So I'm forgetful, so I want to talk about, yes, you're an asset-based lender, but there's still a huge human element in the deal. And then secondly, I want to talk about quality of work. So let's go back to, yes, it's a house. Yes, it's a loan to value. But how are you, and how would you tell everybody here to qualify the individual?
That's a hard part. You need to get references. You need to look at their work, go to visit some of their other projects. You can do some online searches. If you can get a contractor that some other people have used. So I can tell you, Forrest will do a good job, so you should use him if he goes back into the contracting business.
Yeah, no, I won't do that. I do consult, right? So like Fred, for example, has a team of people, and he's more than willing to make sure you don't have a problem, right? And I know with, you know, Mark and Melissa, when they did, you know, their townhouse last year, you know, they were like, can you come? Well, I more or less said, I'm coming over to, you know, talk to you guys, and, you know, you don't need to do this, you need to do that, stuff like that. So, you know, mentoring and guiding is, I think, the right approach, right? I did that. You know, I thought that GCing for other flippers would be a good idea, and I put a good product together, but I didn't make any money because I thought that I had to stay to a fixed price, and that, you know, that changes were my fault.
Oh.
And so instead of going, hey, you know, we have these changes, you know, this is your change order, I thought that I was treating it like my house.
Yeah.
Like that I had to eat the overages.
Right.
And so my mistake was I put too much of me in the deal.
Right.
And I didn't treat it like a contract, like I had in the past doing contracting for other.
So one thing I do with people is, some people are kind of new at contracting. I will recommend somebody like Pete DeWorkin. So he is a fellow who's a contractor, and he's pretty good at estimating. And for a fee, he'll come out, look at your project, give you a budget, and if the budget says, if I am the contractor on this deal, this is what I'll charge you. If you want me to supervise you and you can use some of my subs, this is your price that it's going to cost you. If you want to just go out and get your own contractors and don't want to use me, you just want to look at my estimate, which you paid me $300-400 for, which is, I think, cheap, then this is where you're going to come in at. It's the cheapest way, but you have to be able to have good contractors. And so I recommend getting somebody like that, an estimator that you can rely on.
I've had experience like that with others, you know, in the same model of Pete. And so, you know, I think when you only go with one person, I've seen their estimates come back so high that, you know, because they're really trying to cover themselves. They're not going to lose money. And so, you know, I've seen them kill deals. I've seen them, you know, where somebody said, you know, this is just, I mean, this is a deal killer at this price. And I said, well, let me take a look at it. And I took a look at it, and shoot, it was less than half of what his price is, what the actual renovation budget ended up being, you know. So, you know, just because you get somebody that you feel is going to give you value and you're going to pay them a few $100, that doesn't mean that they're always right.
Right.
So, you know, if you're going to go into this business of getting a third party to qualify, you definitely want to make sure that you get a fourth party and a fifth party and look at a consensus, right? It's the same way that we're going to comp a property, right? How many properties do you look at to determine value of that subject property? Right. At least 3, right? And if you don't get 3, you keep hunting, right? You know, 2 just doesn't cut it. 1 is super scary. So why would you treat your contractor any different?
I agree, yeah.
Right. Why would you treat that person that you paid money to any different, right? So, you know, it's on you. It's your money, right? I mean, you know, you guys can spend as much money as you want, right, in a deal, right? That was my first mistake in this business, was spending way too much of my money. For what? There's no ROI in most things you do in houses, right? You know, nobody cares if it's a $50 light or a $20 light. Yes, sir. You raising your hand? Fred?
Yeah, I'll say something to that. This is not your personal house you're doing. You're doing this to make money, and you can't overbuild and overdevelop the inside of the house. So we had a borrower, and I know Mike said probably the same thing. I mean, she felt she could go plate it, and the house would go up in value. It don't work that way. You got to cut, you know, your expenses here, and you got to buy certain items for that house based on a certain neighborhood. You can't put $1,500 toilets in the house. You know, that's not gonna increase the value of the property.
Yeah. So,
whoever the buyer is probably gonna replace it. Like, they'll come in and do whatever they want, so now or it's not gonna sell, it'll sit, right? Like, you figure if it'll sit, and then you're gonna have to start dropping the price.
That's right.
So we do a few things, right? I like to think that I'm not this way, but I am this way. So I like to take people and test them, right? So like if I was lending on a deal to a new person, right, I would kind of test their willingness to play my game, right? So like, for example, like, you're new and, what do you think your comps are, right? I would test them out, show me your comps. You've done that to me before, right? I've had appraisers read out. But the point is I'd be like, show me your comps, right? See if they understand some logic, right? And then like, okay, well, and then you ask for a renovation budget, right? You ask for renovation budgets as well. Most people probably do, right? So you ask for a renovation budget because you want to see if their mind is working in the right direction to the desired end, right? And so I would say that you make people play your game, right? Make people go through a few hoops, right? I know everybody in this room probably knows Rich Lennon, right? So Rich Lennon had a great example of this about how he would hire a virtual assistant. And he had this strategy of how he would do this huge post, right? And this, I want you guys to know that, this can, transmutate to anything in life, okay? You send people through a maze. And if they come out to the other side, then you got somebody that's willing to follow the rules, right? If somebody goes, what the heck's that for? Or I'm not doing that, then okay, fine, it's done, right? Done,
Yeah.
right? But he would do this entire huge post, right? Just days of reading. And then you get all the way down to the end and it says basically, forget all that, call this phone number, right? And if somebody would actually like read the whole thing all the way to the end, they would call this phone number and have a message of a new task. Like, make a 30-second video of yourself, speaking in English and submit it to this email address. And so it was like that, just 10 steps, right? And then he said, I'll never forget, he said, if somebody gets to the end of it, I hire them. I don't care if I got a place for them or not. He said, I'll find something for them to do, right? And that's the kind of people that you want to work with, the ones that are willing to do, lenders, flippers, right? We're not contractors, right? We're not, if you're a landlord, same thing, same principle applies, right? We're looking to control as much as we can control, right? And you can't control everything, but the more willing of participants you have that will allow you to control them, the better. So I would think that would be a great way for you to test your subjects, whether they're borrowers or whether they're contractors or whatever they happen to be. That's kind of my thought. So let's talk about the quality of work, right? How do you manage that? Because from pictures, because you're doing everything virtually,
Yep.
right? And a lot of people here are doing virtual inspections, right? So a picture, you're shaking your head.
That just seems weird.
What's that?
The virtual inspection.
Okay.
That's just, I have zero experience, so that's why it just seems.
So how do we manage that? That's the point, right? How do you manage a property in Suffolk that you're never going to go see when grayish wall looks like a grayish wall?
Right.
And,
Yeah.
how do you manage that?
Well, we're looking at their budget, at what they say it's going to cost to sheetrock and finish this area and paint it. And if it sort of makes sense, it's in the ballpark, that gives a good feeling. And then I would say we don't manage it as well as somebody who goes there and inspects, but that costs a certain amount of time and money. And so we sort of take a chance. And on any inspections that require, like electrical or plumbing, well, the city inspector or county inspector is going to come out and they're going to say, yeah, this passed, the rough end passed, or the finishing passed. So that gives us a bit of confidence. So I would say virtual is never going to be as good as actually going out to look at it. And that's the risk we take. And that's why we're a hard money lender. But that's why people come to us. We move very quickly. So I compete with national lenders who they don't do virtual. They hire these companies that come out and look. Well, that takes a lot of time, ties up a lot of money of the borrower. The borrower needs that money. So I'm willing to take that risk.
To all the other people in the room, how do you make sure that the quality control is there to your standards? Yes, ma'am.
Well, if it's drivable, if it's within drivable distance, we'll go there. We had brand new flippers who were well connected to people in the area. So we had a higher level of confidence in the project itself. But it was about a 2-hour drive, a little less than 2-hour drive. We still went down there 4 times. Okay. But recently we signed on with Sightwire. Are you familiar with Sightwire?
Not the company, no.
They're a newer sponsor of the Dealmaker, right? Yeah.
We met them at they were a vendor at the private money lending event in Orlando. And they have virtual GCs that are familiar with the geographic areas in which the projects are. And we pay the fee, but oftentimes we can pass that through to the borrower in closing.
And they'll show up at the site?
They don't show up, no. It's a really cool way to spread yourself geographically, especially if you're a lender, where we sign up, we create an account, we put the job into our platform, and then once we put the borrower's email address, the email goes to the borrower saying you've been invited to join this Sightwire, place. They create an account, and then all of their photos and videos that they take of the project, say they have to show the house from the street, video walking from the street showing the number on the mailbox for the house. Okay, this is the subject property, going into the house, and then multiple images are supposed to be taken from every angle of every room, and say it's in the platform that this is their scope of work. Okay, we're going to have a new kitchen. We're going to rehab the kitchen. All new appliances, cabinets, countertops, lighting, yada yada, for everything. Then when they contact us, the borrower contacts us and said, okay, the kitchen's done. Okay, well, this is what you do now. You go to the kitchen and you take 20, 30, 40 photos and videos through your iPhone camera or your Samsung camera, through the app, and it will load into the virtual Sightwire location. Their GC will inspect it, and their GC is familiar, who's been assigned to that project, is familiar with the building and contracting costs in that geographic area. So it's pretty accurate. And they'll either say, okay, the job's 90% done, so I'm going to approve it pending the rest of the job being done for the kitchen, or it's all the way done, I approve it, now the approval process is sent to us, we can review it as well, and we can approve it, or not approve it.
Yeah, it's great service. You pay on percentage of completion?
Yeah.
You choose, as a lender, you can choose 100% or down percentage, right, it's left entirely to the lender which way you want to go.
Right.
The secret sauce in the whole thing is their app.
Yeah.
Because the app is instrumented to the phone, and so they know exactly the geography, they know what floor you're on, they know what direction you're facing.
And they know you're in the target property.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So there's no spoofing it with pictures from a different property or anything else. Right, so they've really thought it through really well.
Yeah, it's
So
great.
It's almost like face recognition, like right in a sense, like just in your phone, because it has multiple points. And so this would just be that higher level.
Yeah.
So what questions do y'all have for Mike? Yes, sir.
Mike, looking forward where things are going, we heard the tips, less expensive starter homes, those types of tips are great. If there are some troubles in the market and some people are under the water, whatever may happen, how do you approach lenders and banks for those types of short sale opportunities? Or how do you take advantage of it? You've seen past markets, so many of us have entered in these roles. So your wisdom on that will be really valuable. Where's the hockey puck going, and what do we need to watch or train ourselves to be ready for it?
Well, I'm so glad that you think that I have the ability to see into the future.
Well, that's what I sold everybody I'm showing up here for, so you better show up.
That's the tagline.
That was the tagline,
So-
Psychic Mike.
So I once had a bank loan, and they asked me that same question, where do you see things in the future? And what I said to them, I said, and I wrote, not since the time of Moses has anyone been able to accurately forecast the future, but I will, given these conditions. And I listed all the conditions. I said the interest rate has to be the same, the employment has to be this, and then I made my prediction. So looking at the future, I think you have to be prepared for problems all the time. And it's easy to forget that when things are going really strong. And things are not going really strong right now. So I would say have a little more cash available to take care of problems, but also to be available for opportunities. Whenever there are problems in the real estate market, there are lots of opportunities. Really profitable ones too. So,
What opportunities do you see right now?
not a lot. They aren't coming my way. I'm not out there, pushing for them. I've thought about maybe I should redirect to better opportunities, but I think what you can get is individuals in houses, since that's what we sort of take care of, that have problems. They will let you buy subject to their existing loan and let that stay in place. And that is a whole nother lecture and seminar about how to buy subject to, but you're given instant financing and all you have to do is cure their default or their problem. So I think there's a lot of opportunity there already and that are coming there. I don't, do you do any sub-twos at all? And you found that profitable?
I hope so.
Yeah. So,
I'll give you an example.
okay.
We just closed on a deal 2 weeks ago. So sub-2 is my favorite. Lease options, sub-2s. Sub-2s are good because you transfer deed. But they're definitely my favorite. And I'll explain to you why. Because, after a certain amount of time in this business, I mean, Ford, you've been in this business a while, right? Who's been in this business more than 5 years? Right? Okay, Essie, all right. It comes a point in this business where it becomes a business and it doesn't really bring much joy anymore, right? And so you have to find ways to entertain yourself, right? And you have to find ways to fulfill yourself, right? Why am I doing this, right? Why am I dealing with these contractors? Why am I dealing with these people, right? We have the first two rules in real estate is sellers lie and buyers do too, right? Rule number one, rule number two, right? So, and I promise you, that's rule number one and rule number two. And so you get to where it's like, what am I really doing this for, right? So I've really come down to two things, right? And I'm on camera, and so I'll be polite. But two things, right? It's the check, right? It's the payoff. That is a high. And then the other thing is truly helping somebody, right? Truly being a solution to a problem and people being grateful, right? So sub-twos and people with real problems with no equity or very little equity that cannot sell their house without taking a large chunk of change that they don't have to the closing attorney to give money to sell their house, and you can provide a solution to them, that's fulfillment in this business, right? And so that's really what a sub-2 is in this essence. Is really, it's not what you see, it's not the course that you can, sub-2 stack your way to heaven, shit like that. Damn Did it. Stuff like that, right? Not all these gurus out there. It's true fulfillment, right? When you solve somebody's problem and you know, you see the tears welling up that they didn't go into foreclosure, right? That's what brings me joy in this business in checks. There's two things. And so in saying that, we just did a deal. So 2 years ago, we had a property in Colonial Heights. It was 907 Kensington Avenue. This lady called me up. She had just gone through a horrible, you know, woman problem, and, you know, she had moved into her home. She hadn't made one payment. She was $8,000 in arrear on a $900 payment. And so she hadn't made one payment. She moved in. She got angry at the house, and because it was a flipped house, and, you know, some of the paint was peeling because they painted over the wallpaper incorrectly. You know, there's ways to do everything, but there's more ways to do it incorrectly. And so anyway, she got upset. She just started tearing the house apart, like literally, like tearing the house apart. And then she had health issues. She had to move in with her mother. And so she ended up filling out a form online, and that's how she found us. That's how most people find me, is online. And I said, well, what do you want to do? She said, I haven't made a payment. I have no equity in this home. I owe $165 is what I bought it for. I'm $8,000 in arrear. And so I said, okay, you know, I can't buy this house for cash, but what I can do is I can take over your mortgage, I can make your payments, I'll get you current, and that's my deal to you, is that I will pay your mortgage for up until, you know, I either pay it off in 30 years or I sell it. But my goal is within 5 years or less, I'm going to find a tenant buyer that can successfully take this home. And so that's what I did. She agreed to it. She said somebody else had pitched her the same deal, but she just felt like she could trust me. And that's because I have empathy, and that's because I freaking care about people, right? I'm a human that cares about other people. And so I did it. And, you know, I pay those mortgages. Okay, let's go even further. I did it in a self-directed retirement account, right? With $275 in that account, right? So what I did is I borrowed the money from somebody else in that retirement account, and I found the right tenant buyer, and it's been 1 year and 11 months, and they closed last week, and so I made 15,000 down, and then we sold it for 200, and the note payoff last month was 153. So we made close to 50 off the deal with no equity. That's a sub 2. That's a success story. The lady who bought the home, it's her first home. She's grateful. Her uncle tried to talk her out of the deal on speakerphone in my office upstairs, right? Yelling at me, telling me I'm a scam. And I said, Naomi, what do you want to do? She said, I trust you. I said, okay. And so she's now a homeowner. She has 3 kids, a boyfriend, and a house on Kensington Avenue in Colonial Heights. Right, so that's the solutions, right? That's what gives me energy in this business, and hopefully, you know, that story, you know, helps somebody else. Any final questions for Mike?
I have a question on the down payment.
Partner?
Yes, that's such a cool idea. The paperwork side. Did you draw up that contract? Had your attorney done these before?
No, I gave the attorney a sheet of paper and said, this is what I want this contract to say.
Okay.
And, you know, so I have to figure that out. And the person I'm dealing with, we have to sit down and talk and figure that out. And we do it in simple English first. And that's what we give to the attorney. They say, make this legalese, but make it simple. Simple is best.
Joe?
Yes, I apologize if this is an elementary question, but as a newer investor, only a couple deals on my belt, I know you talked about the deal you did with Forrest, no money down, are there other ways somebody like myself can get into these deals with little or no money down? I know that could be lender dependent, but...
It's all about the money, honey.
So when I've done several deals with somebody, I will lend to them no money down once they show me they can bring it in on time, on budget, where they can get the purchase price plus the rehab cost, and that equals 70% of the after repair value. So if I have confidence in that person, I'll do a no money down deal with them. Now there may be some other caveats and rules and things, every deal can be a little different. So that's one way. And then of course, the other way is to get sellers to take back seconds. And that can be a substitute for a down payment, just like that deal I did with Forrest, but has a lot of different forms. I have one other idea that I'd like to throw out before we stop. Sure. I had a fellow come to me, he had a nice, this was years ago, standalone garage, and had a metal working shop in there, and he'd leased it to he'd sold it, excuse me, to a guy who did metalworking, nice aluminum building, and he took back a note, and he was, up in years, and he needed to sell the note, he said. So he came to me and said, I want to sell this $200,000 note, it's paying $1,000 a month or something, I don't remember the numbers. And we got to talking, and I said, well, why do you need to sell the note? I mean, what are you trying to do? He said, well, I need a certain amount of money for, a hospital bill. And I said, well, if I buy the entire note, I'm gonna have to discount all that note. So the amount of money you need, you don't need me to buy the whole note. Why don't you sell a partial on the note? Why don't you sell a stream of payments, the next 3 years of payments? Why don't you sell just the next 3 years of payments? I'll own the note for the next 3 years. I'll collect those payments, and I'm going to pay you up front today enough money for you to solve your problem. And that's what we agreed on. It was something like, I bought 3 years worth of payments for what 2 years cash flow would be. And at the end of those 3 years, the note had only paid down 3 or 4%. So he got back a note for $195,000. So he felt really good. It's like, hey, I'm going to get another $195 out of this, and Mike has already given me 20, and I'm really ahead. So there's just a lot of creative ways to structure deals, and you just got to talk to people and talk to me. Find out what we all need.
They have to know you, right? Like, who doesn't know Chuck? I'm surprised you can even walk into the grocery store, right? But everybody knows that Chuck's a lender. Everybody knows that Fred's a lender. The Romans knew that Fred was a lender, right? So you got to talk to people. You got to get out there. If you want to flip a house, you got to talk to people, right? Nothing you got to give something to receive something. So, get out there, talk to people. Everybody knows you. Everybody respects you. And I really appreciate you coming and sharing tonight.
Thanks for having me. I enjoyed it.
Thank you. Thank you. So, so next I want to bring Fred up. We don't really celebrate birthdays around here too much, but Fred just had his 81st birthday this week.
All right, Fred.
Right? So, and Terry has her 22nd birthday on Monday of next week. So, when you guys have time, wish them all a happy birthday, all right? But Fred, I wanted to talk to you about, so you're doing quite a few things right now. Like, if you guys have ever seen an 81-year-old work any harder, I would challenge you that this is not true, right? So Fred is pouring his heart and soul into this new thing called the Virginia Real Estate Investor Alliance. And I just wanted to give you some time to talk about it and just, share with people what you got going on, why you're doing it, and what, they can do to help you.
Thanks, Forrest. I'll give you a little background here, a little story here. My wife and I started in real estate. We bought 3 houses one day. We still own them, had 3 houses. They generate over $6,000 a month cash flow, just those 3 houses. The reason I'm telling you that is because the Alliance, we started the Alliance because of the laws that the General Assembly and local governments are passing that impact us daily and take away rights that we have as investors. So we represent investors across Virginia. We've got somewhere in the neighborhood of 15,000 in groups that are behind the alliance. There's 15 groups down to Hampton Roads. There's 4 down there, and right here in the Richmond, Fredericksburg, Colonial Heights, Williamsburg area, there's somewhere around 11 groups there. And the alliance was created because of those bills and laws that they pass. We are meeting with General Assembly members. We met with David Owens this week. He's a delegate in the Richmond, Henrico area, and we're expressing concerns about the bills. Rent control. There's one for short-term rentals that would practically outlaw them overnight if you didn't have a license. Last year they passed the wholesaling law. How many of you know about the wholesaling law? Okay, it's illegal to sell more than one house without going through a realtor in Virginia now. So it's things like that. If you go to our website, we have a website. It's vreia.org. We have a link up there where you can join. It's $25 a year. You can make a donation. We're also looking for sponsors, but we're looking to fund the group to be able to hire a lobbyist to meet with these.
I'm the lobbyist. I keep telling you that. I keep telling you, because the lobbyist is the best part, right? They get to go to the luncheons, and they get to go down to the state legislature. They get to go to the social parties and stuff. So, I mean, you don't even need to, you just need to do my expenses. I'll do that crap for free.
But the gist of it, when I told you what we do when we started off, we have a board of directors. We're filed with the IRS as a 501c6 tax-exempt nonprofit. Nobody's paid that's on the board. Everybody's volunteers. But everybody that has to be a board member has to have a background in real estate in some form. A lender, they're a flipper, they're a wholesaler, they're a landlord, contract, something like that. So you can't be a board member without that. We've got several members here that are on committees. Forrest is on a committee. Chuck's on a committee.
I'm on the fun and hospitality committee. And snacks.
But things have changed over the years, and we've got to adapt to change. I'll give you an example here. How many of you are lending money now? Raise your hands. Chuck, did you count them people?
No.
Huh?
I didn't count.
It's a big difference from when you first started, isn't it?
Yes.
Major difference.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, Chuck and I go back a long way. When he first came, what, it was one person? 1 or 2 people raise their hands, Marie and I?
Yeah. That's it.
So things, you have to adapt to change, and you have to pivot in this industry to make money. And that's what it's about. So that's what the Alliance is here for, to help you. Don't think you can go alone, because everything that you're doing, there's someone else behind you that's doing something. Just like when Chuck lends money, it's those people he's lending money to. It's people I loan money to. It's people I rent properties to. It's people that we have, flips with. They're the ones that are making us benefit from this, not us, because we can't do it by ourselves. You got all these other people, and that's what the Alliance is for. So I appreciate it. Do you have that video you can play?
I don't have a video.
Oh, you
I
don't
just
have
have a
that video?
static. No, you didn't give it to me.
Okay, well, I'll send it to you.
Just send it
But
to me.
anyway, that's the scan code right there. You can scan that, and it'll take you right to our website. Well, we've got a Facebook page also where we post laws that are changing constantly across the country. So how many of you have anything to do with septic tanks? The law changes July the 1st. Are you aware of that? Septic tank. Septic tank law changes July the 1st. Got to be inspected by a licensed inspector. It's all up there. It's up there on the Facebook page where we post this stuff, so you can look at it. And I run a landlord meetup too, once a month, similar to Forrest's meetup that he has, but mine's on landlord.
Mine's more funny
Yeah.
and entertaining. Yours is kind of dry.
No, ours is more up to date with current laws and what's going on, okay?
We don't care about laws. Huh? We don't care. This is the lawless place. Huh?
So anybody have any questions?
I want to add to that. I think you left a couple things out. So
Okay.
what was it? Yesterday was our call that we were on.
Yeah,
Tuesday, Wednesday.
We have Zoom calls.
We were on a call, and there was a point that was made by Nate Dobbins, and you had asked for some insight or some feedback, and Nate made a point that he came to an understanding that these legislatures don't read the goddamn bills. They're not reading it. He said, what his understanding came to be after that appointment is that the legislatures leave it up to us to read these bills and lobby groups to lead these bills and then get with them and say, hey, this isn't right. Or, hey, this is the impact that this will have. They're not reading the legislation. They had, 11,000 bills to pass in a month? Right? They don't read them. They wait for somebody to cry. They wait for somebody to speak up. And that's not right, but that's the way that it's done.
And their only education comes from the lobbyists who are representing cities. Like the realtors probably have a very full lobbyists.
Because they're not lobbying for the same thing that we are, okay? And that's the issue. But the thing of it is, we've met with several of these legislatures on the wholesaling law. Every one of them voted for it, but none of them knew what it was. I asked Owens. I said, he said he voted for it. I said, well, did you know it outlawed wholesaling? It outlawed us selling a house without going through a realtor.
And he was a real estate investor.
Yeah, and he's a real estate investor, but he didn't know this. But he voted for it.
For 20 years, he was a real estate investor and voted against his own industry.
What's the Facebook group name?
It's Virginia Real Estate Investors Alliance. You have to spell it all out. But the website...
He doesn't make it easy.
The website is a scan, okay? Right there. You just scan that.
Scam?
Scam.
Scam? It's a scam?
No, scan.
Scam?
QR
With an M?
Well, QR code, yes. Okay, yeah.
not a scam.
Okay.
So what else do you have on there?
Chuck.
To Donna's point about lobbyists' influence on legislators because the lobbyists are reading the bills and telling them what to say. Tenants are having lobbyists. They have a voice with legislators that investors don't have.
Let me tell you on that subject. There's a state out west. You tell me how they're doing this. There's a state out west where tenant groups have raised $700 and some thousand to get bills passed in that state against landlords and developers on real estate. We're talking a lot of money, $700,000.
Yes, sir.
Tell you about that. During that time frame when all those, we get the flurry of bills, does the Real Estate Alliance have a plan to have a team of readers to read the bills and identify all these challenges in them?
Well, what we're doing now, you can go to the website, to the state website, and what we've been doing. So we're limited on what we have. People that we're looking for volunteers to help us do things, but you can go there and do a search on, say, real estate or landlord, specific words, and then you can find those bills and then look at them and see what they are pertaining to what we're doing here. So there's been 6 or 8 bills that did pass the General Assembly, and they're going to be law July the 1st. Our attorney, Curtis Gordon. Does anybody know Curtis Gordon?
Yes.
Okay, he's one of our the law firms that works for us. And Curtis is coming to the landlord meetup the 16th of this month to talk about the new laws that are going to affect July the 1st. Some of them are good, some of them may not be good for you, but we have to adapt. And that's what we're doing. And
So clues are left all over the country, right? So I got my realtor license in 2022 or 2023 because Oklahoma passed the anti-wholesale law. And Oklahoma was a rather conservative state. And I said, well, if Oklahoma did it, it's only a matter of time before our purple state did it. Now, granted to say, this is bipartisan stuff, right? Nobody's reading it, right? It doesn't matter which side you're on. This affects everybody, right? We have, all kinds of people that are landlords and accidental landlords, right?
Mm-hmm.
Let's talk about an accidental landlord that, everybody knows what that is, right? That's somebody that should be spanked, right? But they, instead of selling their house for little to no money, they decide that they'll let their sister's boyfriend move into a house, and and then property taxes, whose property taxes went up last year, right? So now they're upside down. They're paying somebody to live in their house, right? And then what if rent control happens, right? I mean, are they going to do property tax control to make sure that we still keep cash flow, right? They're not going to do that. They're going to say poo on you. So that is, there's clues left all over the place, right? Connecticut just passed rent control law, right? And, they think it's going to create fairness and it's going to create more opportunity. And then what did North Carolina just pass?
Well,
it hasn't passed yet.
It hasn't passed. It's passed through one house.
Right.
And these are the kind of bills that we put up there for you to see what's going on, because what he's talking about goes on there is coming here too, sooner or later.
And North Carolina, we can all say, is a rather traditional state.
Right. So North Carolina has passed this law in one of the houses. If it gets through the other one, the governor will sign it. You can't buy a property unless you're going to own or occupy it. You understand what that means?
No investment properties.
You have to own or occupy the property if you buy it.
For how long? I'm just curious.
I don't know. I don't know.
But that's what the bill says in its essence. So let's just bake that for a minute, right? Well, where does that line stop? Apartment buildings, right? Condos, right? Does that what does that mean, right? Only developers can be landlords, right? They develop a property and they put a property management company in there. Where does that line draw, right? That's just, this is real stuff that's going to affect everybody.
In Washington State just passed a law, and before it went into effect, this is a rent control bill. Before it went into effect, what happened? Does anybody know? They raised the rents 30%. The landlords out there raised the rents 30% right before the bill went into effect. So the bill here in Virginia, there were 3 of them this year that went through the General Assembly. And we send out things through Constant Contact to people to call your legislature and send them an email to vote against this. What the bill was, December, the CPI was 2.9%. That means July the 1st, if it had passed, you couldn't raise the rent more than $58 on a $2,000 a month rental. I've got insurance and taxes on some of my properties that went up more than the $58 a month.
So to sum all this up, because Fred could talk all damn night. I don't know if you guys met this guy, but we could go around this all night long. So August the 26th, there's going to be another auction, and it's going to be up in Fredericksburg this time. And this is how you can support the group, right? You can do your $25 donation. You can, get on your soapbox on the street corner and talk about how bad, our legislatures are treating us, or you can, help, them help the Real Estate Alliance group, do the work in a professional manner. So that auction is going to be like the one week. Yes, ma'am.
No, I was just going to say, I'm not on the committee for that fundraiser. So if anybody wants to talk to me, I have my cards, I'll pass them out. We can just say something.
Perfect.
But we're also doing a thing, is it the 17th?
Down in
Hampton Roads. We've got 4 groups down there with 4,000 members down there.
Is that June or July?
It's this month.
June. We're in June.
We're
in June.
Yeah, this month.
Yeah.
June.
Yeah.
So if anybody wants to go down there, there's 4 groups down there, and we're trying to spread out to other areas of the state. It's all in numbers. It's numbers of people that are going to call these legislatures and write them a letter when we send out a thing through Constant Contact, and we don't have your email address unless you join the alliance. And you pay the $25, we get your email address, then we're going to add you to Constant Contact and send out the notice to call them. So we don't only just support Virginia laws, but we're also supported the bills in Washington. How many of you have rental properties? Okay. How many of you are aware of the eviction laws? Whose law you think you're aware of? Right now, the reason I'm asking that is because Virginia today, there's 3 laws for eviction. Depends on where you're located. There's 4 cities that are under a pilot program for the state. July the 1st, that goes statewide. So the eviction laws change statewide July the 1st, depending on the judge in that jurisdiction. But if you have a government-backed loan, you're under eviction process from Washington, D.C. that's been in effect since COVID. And we tried to get that voted down. And then we tried to get the Dodd-Frank law changed too, so that you can loan money to more than, 1 or 2 people over a period of, say, 12 months. You could do 12, 15 on a rolling basis. So Jeff Watson is spearheading that. He's an attorney in Ohio. If you don't know Jeff, he's a big attorney up there. He's a deal maker mostly every year talking, and he helped us get the alliance started. But it's not just Virginia law, it's other laws that are taking place in D.C. that impact us too in what we're trying to do.
Marie, what'd you say? Fred's got to sit down? All right, Fred. All right, thank you, Fred. I appreciate it. Daggone it. Y'all just keep it going.
Well, you can talk forever on this subject.
Yes, you could. All right. Give me that.
Well, she's got a question.
One question.
Okay, she got a question.
I'll be happy to answer.
Whoever's wearing the mic, okay. Can you explain, because some people might, myself included at one point, said, what good is my phone call to my representative going to do? Because it's just going to go into a voice message. Who's going to hear it? It's going to reach a dead end. But I now understand that they're actually tallying, there's someone actually tallying. Can you explain how that?
You need to ask to talk to, when you call the governor's office or you call one of these legislatures, you don't leave a voice message. You ask them to call you back and you talk to every one of these delegates have an aide. And that's who you need to talk to if you can't get to the delegate. We're getting to the delegates. We're meeting with them. If you've got a delegate, contact them, give us your name, and we'll set up a meeting so that we can come there and explain to him. We got a 12-page document that we've drafted on the pros and cons on rent control that we gave to David the other day. So it's things like that. It doesn't do any good to call there and say, yeah, I want to speak to somebody. You got to get through to somebody and talk to them.
Well done. Well said. Thank you, Fred.
Okay.
All right. All right. So real quick, with a show of hands, I think everybody in here would have my support, or would support me for being the lobbyist for Virginia Real Estate Alliance, right? Everybody, show of hands. All right. All right. All right, couple more things. So a lot of people are trying to stage for pennies on the dollar, so I said, screw that, we'll just stage your house for free. All right, so we offer free staging service for anybody flipping their house. If you let me list your property, I do reduced commission on your listings, and I will stage your house for free. Okay, so I dare all these other people to go to free. All right. So that being said, my wife owns Dealer Design. That's how we can do it. And she is a premier home stager in Richmond. And the area, she's gone all the way to Stanton, to Fredericksburg, Woodbridge, down in the beach area. And, Rob in the back there is who you're going to talk to most of the time. We do what we say we're going to do when we say we're going to do it, and everybody is impressed. And if you're not impressed, we go back and make you impressed. All right, that's our level of service, and that's our value, is we're going to have you as a customer that is pleased with our product, and that's our value. And our value is, you know, it's everything to us, right? Our reputation is our brand, and it's our business. So if you guys have a staging and you have a realtor in mind, we still have competitive pricing that you guys will, you know, enjoy a quality product and somebody on your team that you can trust, right? So that being said, you know, a lot of people, you know, oftentimes, you know, we kind of heard tonight about people running out of budget and running over budget, right? So we said, well, there's got to be a better way. So what we do is we do pay at closing options for, you know, a convenient charge, or convenience fee rather. And then we also just brought on a third-party funding source called Titan. And so they were in the roofing industry where they would do loans for roofs and stuff like that for contractors to be able to go to a customer and go, hey, you know, you don't have the money. Well, okay, you just apply for this, you know, Titus. So what they've done with the staging industry is they've gone and said, hey, you know, if you want to pay at close, that's fine. You apply for this line of credit. So they do line of credit for realtors and home flippers, to where you guys will now get a line of credit, and you'll be able to get your money for your staging up front, and then you just pay at closing. And so, and they offer a better percentage than what we would do in-house. And so it provides more value to you guys, because that's what we do. We are a value service company. So I encourage you to talk to Rob when you need a staging. Take a QR code of that thing in the back over there that has the free staging description and outline, or take one of his business cards that are in the back, okay? And then, so everybody's learning in this business, and I'm also learning. I'm learning every day. Today I spent half my day on, you know, Claude is my preferred AI source, where, you know, I build and grow. My assistant Alex and my assistant Silvana that y'all met as y'all came in this evening, she had to go home. She's got a young child. But, you know, they're constantly trying to get us to bring more value to you guys. And so, you know, I was speaking with Terry on the phone the other day, and she was like, Forrest, why don't you just call this out? Why don't you just say this? So what we have is we have a Dallas event. It's another lender event for the National Dealmaker brand, which is headquartered here. But that QR code that you have right there, if you choose to use it, and then there's also one in the back there if you don't see this in time. That QR code is an affiliate link. Does everybody know what an affiliate link is? Yep. Right? So that means that when you choose to use our QR code, we make 25% of the $700. Okay, so what does that mean? That means that I keep the chicken flowing, right? I keep the whiskey flowing. I keep the sodas. I mean, because shit, Fred drinks like 5 Cokes when he's here. I mean, just him alone, right? So you know, it allows us to continue to bring value. I believe in my heart that I'm bringing value to people, because I see people come back month after month after month. And that gives me energy, that allows me to, you know, spend this whole week prepping for this event, because I really don't want this to be half-assed event. I really want you guys to, you know, understand that I'm here to give forward, and I'm here to give forward because I know that I'm going to create relationships, and you know, I have so many great relationships in this group. You know, me and my wife are going through a few personal things right now, health-wise, and, you know, we have some people in this group that are just pouring love into us right now, and it's just amazing, the people that I met through me standing up here and providing value to you guys. So, with that said, if you choose to go to this Dallas event, I ask that you would please use our QR code so we can continue to bring value like we bring, okay? And that also goes for, you know, the annual memberships and the walk-in appointments. You know, if you guys, you know, feel like You've received value tonight. If you guys, would want to do the annual membership, it is a little bit of a discount from you coming every month, and it does help out because, it pays the bills around here. We're investing in the social media platform and in the YouTube platform. So, what you see right there this month alone is like $700 in technology that I invested back into this to try to continue to bring value throughout the month so that people that can't come, like Joni, don't come every month, right? So people that can't come every month can still get some value of the event through some snippets. So if you feel like, you've received value and you want to be an annual partner with us, please, choose to do that. There's a QR code in the back. Don't y'all love QR codes? They're freaking amazing.
They're not scams at all.
They're not scams at all. No, not at all. All right, so now we have our deal maker session. Did anybody come with any deals or opportunities, or anybody willing to lend on some things? Anybody got anything? Yes, ma'am.
Got money.
You got money. All right. Heck yeah. So I have a deal that we actually we got in a contract today. It's down in Petersburg. We're starting at 145. It's on Meadowbrook Street in Petersburg. It's a 3-bedroom, 1-bath, 1,282 square feet, built in 1950. And I say Petersburg, don't get scared. It's on 460 south of Petersburg, in between Hell and 295. All right, so did I say that out loud?
You said 145K?
Yeah, so it's Meadowbrook Street in Petersburg. So if you guys are interested, it was basically a flipped home 4 years ago when they moved in. Okay, so but they've done nothing. Nothing. All right. So other than that, let's see. Let me use my notes because I'm always forgetting something. Next events. So July 3rd is our next Thursday, first Thursday of the month. I completely understand that we're probably not going to have that many people show up the day before 4th of July. So I'm going to do a less structured event. We're just going to come here. We're going to shoot some pool. We're going to play this shuffleboard thing. You know where that thing came from? So this thing came from, if you read it, what is it called? Scratch Biscuit? What is it called? What does it say on there? No. Thank you. Appreciate that. So anyway, Tang and Biscuit. Tang and Biscuit. So there's a new airplane renter hangar guy here that used to own Tang and Biscuit. And so when he sold the company, he took one of those, and he's been waiting for a space large enough that it's been in storage for a couple years. And so when he moved his airplane in here, he moved that in here. So we've got that set up. We've got full permission to play with that and do whatever. It's kind of cool, actually. And then we're just going to hang out. We've got, I call it beanbag toss. What do people call it that take it seriously? Cornhole, yeah. so we got cornhole. So we'll just have some refreshments and some drinks. We're going to chill out and network and have a good time. It's just kind of like my exception to the rule. Everything has value, and networking does too. So July the 3rd is going to be that. Now, August the 7th, all right, if you don't come to July, you're required to come to August, okay? And here's why. So, like I said, my wife and I have some life going on right now, and unfortunately, we weren't ready with our paperwork. So, we ended up having to rush to Lynn Tucker's office, which is the Tucker and Dankos, Gordon and Tucker. That office of attorneys does basically everything for us professionally and personal. So we had to rush to Lynn, and we had to say, hey, we're not prepared for life events, and we're not prepared for what happens next. So Lynn's been working with us to get us prepared. And so I've asked her to come and speak to us about what it takes to be prepared for what happens next. Because, my favorite customer in buying houses is people that aren't prepared for what happened next, right? Their children, or, their 7 children, or their 10 children, or, what happens, whatever it is to be, right, Ford? I mean, these messy titles, and people, this sister don't talk to this brother, and that, all that can be easily taken care of, right? All that can easily be decided. But it takes action. It takes knowing that you're not going to be around forever, and that, you know, bad things happen to good people. And so, you know, you need to be prepared for these things. And so Lynn's going to come and she's going to outline, you know, the basic things that you should have done in case you are, you know, ill, in case that you do pass. Like, for example, I didn't know that, so my wife and I own a home. And I didn't know that because I'm her second marriage, that it doesn't just go to me. It goes to my stepchildren and me. So, you know, without a will in place, because it's a second marriage, we would have to deal with things. And, you know, anybody that knows us knows that 2 of my stepchildren live in Malaysia. They don't even have green cards. So how am I going to navigate that, you know, without, you know, a will in place? So to get personal, which I usually do, I'm an open book, you know, that's just reality that we've had to take care of, you know, rather quickly, that we should have done a long time ago. And you don't know what you don't know until, you know, it slaps you upside the face. So I encourage everybody to come to the August event on August 7th and you know, let Lynn, you know, tell you guys what you really need to be doing to make yourself, because everybody has something, right? Everybody has something. And, you know, how you leave it is up to you. It's your decision. And oftentimes, I've seen this way too many times, that if you don't leave it right, it's often a burden on the person that you're leaving it to. So I encourage you, have respect for the people that love you and you love, and, you know, show up in August and let's, you know, get everybody's shit straight. I can't make it through a whole thing without cussing. Jesus Christ. All right, and I'm looking for land in Louisa for new construction. So I've started closing out with a quote that I feel is meaningful of this event that we're in, particular event. So this guy named Viktor Frankl, I have no idea who he is. He says, when we're no longer able to change a situation, we're challenged to change ourselves. So I hope you guys got some value. Thank you for coming. Have a good evening.